Hello and welcome to today's video in the self-actualized education using human design for parents, educators and homeschoolers. In today's video, we're going to talk about the third line energy, and this is really vital information if you have a third line child or if you yourself are a third line. So in human design, we go deep into profile. Profile is one aspect of human design that gives us huge amounts of data about who we are, how we are designed to operate on this planet, what our role is, and how to live out and express our purpose. And so in the forthcoming series that I'm collaborating on with Sasha Clark, who's also a parenting by human design coach, we are doing a 12 series podcast, which will be uploaded here on this YouTube, so look out for that, on each of the profiles. But profile is such a valuable area to focus on when you are looking at how can we support and nurture our children to fulfill their potential and live out their trajectory. Because when we look at profile lines or profiles, you will see the lines. Today we're going to focus on one line, which is the third line. Profile comprises of two numbers: the conscious number, one line, and a third line, or the second number, the unconscious. So, if in the Human Design Lab, which is a group program that I do for families and individuals and businesses and teams, it doesn't matter. But when I take a group of people and you can book in and we can create a bespoke human design lab, which is a 5-week course where we cover each of the foundational areas of the charts and look at the dynamics within the culture of your family or your team or whatever it happens to be. So at the moment, I'm currently working with a family. The grandmother is a 1-3. The two grandchildren are third lines, 3-6 and a 3-5. So in that dynamic, we are seeing a huge amount of third line energy. And the grandmother has that third line unconscious. So, she's made it to 83 years old. And therefore, she probably is very, very aware of the dynamics of that third line, because as we grow and as we evolve in our consciousness, we actually become more aware of the unconscious side. But when we're younger, unless we, I don't think it's unless anything, but there can often be, it can be the case that we are not aware of that unconscious side until we begin a journey of introspection and self-development. However, I will say that way before human design, when I was in my teaching practice and in the classroom, I was fully third line. My third line was just so obvious. So today we're going to talk about third line. If you have a third line child, or if you are a third line, you have a trajectory of being a transformer. You are an anarchist. You are here to see what works and what doesn't through example, and to share your discoveries and innovations and novel approaches by bringing forward your learning that you've learned from experience, to shake shit up. So basically what we're looking at is a very innovative human being. I like to call the third line a scientist, like words I would use to describe the third line: scientist, innovator, experimenter, someone who has to learn through trial and error, which is the traditional human design language. And I would say that's the case. If a third line child, or if you yourself as a third line are not having the opportunity to learn from firsthand experience, you are stagnating. And so if you are in your, if that person isn't getting, if the child is conditioned to feel shame about making mistakes, that third line is going to suffer throughout life because it's going to hold them back from fulfilling their potential. If a third line isn't experimenting, making a mess, and learning through that experiential pathway, they are not mutating, they're not fulfilling their role, they're not fulfilling their purpose. So the evolution of the planet, the evolution of ideas, the evolution of any business, or product or anything on our planet is really driven by that third line energy. Now, when we look at a human design chart, I wish I could bring one up. Maybe I can. I don't know if I have mine available. Let's have a look. I do have a chart on screen, but I don't have mine. All right, let's look at this. I'm just signing in. Okay. So what we're looking at when we're looking at a third line being, we are looking at somebody who is here to learn through experience, make a mess, and move through life at what seems like to be a lot of mistakes that actually are part of their evolutionary role and part of their pathway to providing solutions to the whole that that they're learning from those data points. So one way we can really support the third line child is to let them make mistakes. I cannot emphasize this enough, that we need to create a culture, a learning culture, where you ask things like, what have you learned from this? So I guess developing a metacognitive approach to life, developing very powerful self-reflective questions, journaling. These are the things that you can help your child from a very early age to use in all aspects of life and develop that learning culture. So whether it's an actual problem that they're solving in school, whether it, I wonder, posing questions and hypothesis. I wonder what will happen if I do this. I tried this, it didn't work. What were the what were, what were the reasons for this? Or I did this, I learned, this X, Y, and Z, and especially with really painful situations in their lives, friendships, you can apply it not just to their learning, but as I say, to real life context. So developing a self-reflective practice on their choices, on their decisions, when their decisions don't go well. Third lines, human design is all about decision making, teaching your child the foundational decision making strategy that they have called inner authority. Before we get into the multiple levels of intuition that we will also talk about on my channel and in the work that we do together, the foundations of human design is to give people the power to make decisions that are correct for them. And what's interesting about the third line is that when they make decisions that their authority has said a yes for, sometimes those decisions can actually be wrong because they are designed to learn and create something new. So let me go back to sharing the screen. So what I wanted to show you with the chart is that even though, let's have a look here. So if we look at the black side, we see the top square is the sun. It says 54.1. The one line tells me, the one there is a one line. It tells me I'm a first line being, okay? So my profile line, my conscious profile is 1. When we look here, we see that there is a 57.3. The 3 there tells us that my unconscious is a third line. Equally, my profile, when we put those two numbers together, means I'm a 1-3 profile. But I wanted to bring this up to show you that even if you're not a third line being, you will have third line and possibly have the potential is quite likely you're going to have a third line energy in your chart. And so you want to look down all of these numbers, which are gates, and look at where you have a third line, because everything I'm talking about today is going to apply to that gate. So here, 51.3, I'm here to learn about meeting my fears, having shocks and initiating me into higher levels of consciousness, awakening through the third line thematic. So everything I'm talking about in terms of these archetypal energies are what we call themes. They're themes that are consistent for a third line being, which is why human design is so fantastic. Because if you are looking at Myers-Briggs, or if you're looking at another personality tool, Enneagram, all of these things, astrology, blah, 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 great. But this is consistent. This is who your child is, who you are. We're in a range of potentials in how that person plays them out. So I would never say anything is fixed. I never tell people this behavior pattern is who you are. What I show you is what are the things we can expect. And then as you experiment and as you go through your life and understand yourself in context, it's a tool to give you a lot of clarity about why you're experiencing things that you're experiencing and how you show up in this world. So the third line, the way I describe the third line is that the third line is here and born to mutate. Mutate is a word you're going to hear a lot in human design. It's about transformation. And a lot of us are mutate. You know, my 51 energy, even just in my presence, people will feel, they will have the energy of awakening. You know, the energy of the transformation will change because it's how our aura works. But that's for another video. But let's look at it like this. The third line energy is here to mutate, innovate, and adapt. They're here to shake shit up. They're here to see what works and what doesn't work and bring forth the new. And if that third line is too scared because to make a mistake, or if they become very pessimistic because nothing's working in life, they've got to develop that mindset that, you know, build that resilience and learn a growth mindset, because that's the role. And so we can expect a lot of setbacks. We can expect an arduous journey, but it doesn't have to be a terrible thing. When we understand the role of that third line energy and how it plays out, we can really support that third line being to develop their resilience, to develop mindset tools, to seek community of like-minded people that can help them, but also have those self-coaching tools to be able to actually constructively work with their life and the energy in productive ways. Instead of being the failure, instead of being pessimistic, instead of feeling like life is, you know, so bad, they can actually go, wow, I'm actually bringing forward something new. They can have a spirit of inquiry and curiosity. It can change the way they perceive these perceived setbacks. And actually, I always say, for me, the line that I always use is the only way out is in, or the only way out is through, right? And that not only is a 51, a kind of a 51 gate energy perspective when you're in that highest expression, because otherwise you can be deeply depressed and deeply melancholic. Um, especially with the third line too, but the third line knows when we have the wisdom of that third line, the third line knows that the struggle and the challenge that they're facing is because it's an obstacle or a perceived obstacle that they are here to actually find the way that they can then use and serve others ultimately. Okay. So how I describe the third line is that your third line child, or you yourself, are an intrepid explorer, an adventurer. You wander into and through life, experimenting, testing, trialing, improving. I call us, because I'm a third line, the potent pioneer. And when you're in the right experience, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an artist, whether you're a teacher, whether, you know, a chef, there's a huge creativity in that third line. Adaptability is a key word I want you to remember. Adaptability, third line, innovation, pioneering, because you go out, you go beyond, you go and you say, you know, you tear down. And there's a lot of that. I see a lot of, you know, it happened to me in education where I could no longer work in an inner city school in the systems, because I could see that there was too many things that didn't work. And there wasn't a way of transforming that on a systemic level. So I had to come outside, and now I bring all the wisdom, and I'm beginning this movement, the Be the Expert movement. And the work that I do outside of the system in homeschooling, bringing pedagogy, curriculum, ideas, human design, metaphysics, all the things that I know, emotional intelligence. How do we create an education that supports children to fulfill their potential in a real way? How do we develop emotional intelligence? How do we get them to understand the energetic realm and energetic mastery? How do we get them to understand life in context of their human design? Um, so the third line in you is here to bring wealth, sustainment, and discoveries that bring sustainability and prosperity to all. So in human design, we see the third line as the material way, and it is a very material line because it is here for the mundane world. Not to say that they don't have a spirituality or connection to other realms or whatever. You know, the point is that third line is about new and improved. How can we develop sustainability? How can we develop wealth? How can we, create financial security for oneself through their discoveries? And in the doing, so in the experiential way, in their learning, what they do is bring those novel solutions to the wider society, and everybody benefits. I talk about the anarchist, and because it really is, there is an internal energy that cannot abide something that doesn't work. Eventually, like it can be in a relationship, it can be in a system, it could be in the school, it could be in the family, it could be at work. You will get to the point where it will feel so uncomfortable for you that is what we call the martyr it. So that's the point where the third line says, tearing this down, this doesn't work. And we enter the theme of bonds made and bonds broken. And when I talk about profile, we're going to look at all of these aspects of profile. Bonds made and bonds broken is something that doesn't have to be negative, but it is a thematic that will play out, and it's something to be aware of. So it could happen in relationship. If the third line feels like something's not working, they can break the bond, but that bond can be remade, and they will experiment and see whether the relationship is viable to go forward, or they'll walk away. And it's the same in anything, whether you approach learning, whether you're in business, whatever. So the third line really has a trajectory of tearing down old ways, broken ways, or just the plain unworkable ways, and shine a light on how it can be. They're magicians, they want to show you what's possible. And the third line isn't designed to follow. The third line is designed to lead, you know? I call it the material way and the way of expansion. So without the pulse and the courage to shake things up, the third line is not fulfilling their potential. They're not on the evolutionary pulse to initiate and awaken those around them and the world at large. Every third line is going to come to the planet with something in their story that they are going to lead change, innovation, and transformation on. Know that about your child, and then ask, in knowing all of this, how does this help me to nurture and help them to flourish, to fulfill their trajectory and their fullest potential? The third line didn't come to do it the way that it's always been done. The third line is always going to bring the new. And that's the magic of the third line. It's the gift. It's their creative contribution. So there is a lot more we can talk about on the third line. So if you would like to book a profile reading for yourself or your third line child, not third line. Yeah, if you have a third line child or any child, any profile, we're going to go through all the profiles. You can book a reading in. If you'd like to join if you'd like to book a group in for the Human Design Lab, please feel free to reach out and book that. Either book the class or reach out to me directly, and we'll talk about your needs and whether it's a family connection or a business team or whatever. But let's say, what are the three things that I really want you to take away from today's video? I want you to know that the third line child is here to be a change agent. That child, the trajectory of the third line is to be a change agent. I would love you to remember that when you have a third line child, they have to learn through embodied experiential way. They have to try for themselves and they have to be okay with failing and failing fast and failing forward. So making sure that we create a very powerfully effective environment for them to make mistakes and to see mistakes as learning points and data points, and to not develop shame around making mistakes. Because if they, as I said, if third line develops that fear, they are going to stagnate. They're not going to fulfill their purpose. They're not going to have the richness of life. The third line is very adventurous, movement, travel, being in different places. This is the qualities of the third line. And the final thing that I would like you to remember today when supporting your third line child is to help them to develop a growth mindset, help them to develop a metacognitive approach to learning and to life. So, what happened? What, what did I learn? How will I use this? Um, what, when will I use this knowledge again? So, there's three questions. What happened? What did I learn? What did I learn? How will I use it? How will I learn this? How will I use this knowledge again? Or how will I transform and adapt the next time? Because that's where you're bringing in that evolution. There's huge amounts that we haven't covered on the third line. So as I say, you can book yourself in and share in the comments what was the most interesting, or illuminating part for you. What issues do you face with your third line child, or you yourself as a third line? How is this? How are some of these thematics showing up in your business, in your life, in your work, your career, your relationships, and what new things have you brought forward? Okay, speak soon. Bye.